How can you break free from the low bid trap and start winning more profitable work? That and many other questions we are going to answer on today's episode with Matt Neuberger. He's a sales expert who specializes in helping construction companies transform their approach to business development. We're going to explore real-world examples of contractors who've doubled their revenue by focusing on work they love and are uniquely good at. And we're going to be discussing how to move your hit rate up to 35 to 50% by adopting certain mindset shifts that are needed to win without being the cheapest option. And we are also going to dive into how getting involved before the bid hits the street is absolutely critical to getting that kind of hit rate. So if you're tired of low digit hit rates and you want to get more into the 35 to 50% range, you are in the right place. And we're going to have an awesome time. Let's dive right in. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Matt, welcome to Construction Genius.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're going to have an awesome time because you are an expert in helping construction companies sell more work. I love talking about that, so it's going to be fun. Let me just dive right in. Can you walk us through a real-world example of a contractor who broke out of the low bid trap and what changed in their sales process?
Sure. So it's actually a really fun story because this is a family business, and a lot of the contractors we work with are family businesses. It was started by the grandfather, the father. In this case, the son had taken over his father's business, and the business for the longest period of time, this was a small general contractor. And for the longest time, the business had sort of stayed in the same revenue range. Very hard work, very different work. Every single project was a little bit different, but in a major metropolitan area. And the big change that we made for this particular contractor was when we looked at the work that they were doing. We asked them a few questions. What is the work you love? What is the work that you're most profitable at doing? And where do people find you? And by going through that process, and this example is actually in the field guide that we have, but this contractor realized that they were actually doing very good work with embassies. And that's very unique work. It has unique characteristics to it. But they were also doing work with other types of businesses, and the work was hard, low bid, and they were usually one of 3 to 5 bidders. When they did win, they won on price, but they weren't making any money and they were exhausting their team. So the big success story here for them is when we identified that they were doing great work with embassy, they were able to command a higher price in this space. They were able to win the work more easily and sometimes without even competition. When they refocused the business on this profile of project, they ended up winning very easily and finding more business with very little business development effort. That's not to say not, but comparatively speaking to the other projects where they were winning, they had to go through lengthy bid processes and typically get their price work down to nothing. In addition, the nice benefit from this was retention of their team went up because the team liked doing the work and they knew how to do it and they were good at it. But when they would do other types of work that wasn't necessarily remodeling work for these embassies, it ended up being a little bit harder for them to conduct the work and to do it right without all the headaches and chaos that come with doing a project the wrong way. So that was really the refocusing on where they were winning, loved the work, and their team had the experience that caused them to double in about 2 years from where they had been for almost ever.
That's interesting. So that's a strategic choice.
Yeah.
And the neat thing about that is that many people, when they're thinking about improving their selling, their hit rate and landing more work, they're thinking, man, I need to sort of get a little bit of charisma, or I need to figure out how to pitch things right. But it's not necessarily that. It's about the kind of work that you're going after. And it's interesting. You said work that you love, and you made that connection with keeping your crews happy because they're working on projects that they enjoy, and work that you're profitable in. And when you say find you, what did you mean by that?
Well, in terms of their reputation, it was easier for them to network within that community. There's a sub-community within embassies and embassy work. It's because of the security clearance that's needed, the general nature of you're working with people that typically aren't from this country. the word of mouth factor spreads much faster with a little bit of effort there. So the work will find you just by the very nature of asking what other embassies or who else do you know to get that work. So to your point, you don't have to be super charismatic.
Yep.
You have to be able to say, we're actually an expert in this area. And here are the problems we find when you don't have this expertise or these things that are a concern for you.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really neat. So then as you're looking at that, it's really interesting how a lot of contractors, they get trapped in a price-driven race to the bottom. So what's the first mindset shift they need to make if they want to be able to win without being the cheapest?
They want to win without being the cheapest. Eric, a lot of people are going to hate this answer, but it's the truth. And that is that it's where you're entering the process, where you're entering your bid. So for the contractors that we work with, a lot of times, and oftentimes what we find is that they are entering when there is a bid that is on the street. There are other people being invited or they've been invited.
Yeah.
Fundamentally speaking, if you're entering the sales process there, you are already playing a losing game.
Yep.
Now, you will win some, but your hit rates are never going to be between 35 and 50%. They're going to be in the teens or sub-teens.
Yes.
Problem is your estimating department is getting crushed. And they hate anyone in business development who keeps bringing them these things that aren't even clear that they've got to work on. So bottom line here, Eric, is you've got to enter the process before the opportunity is on the street.
Yeah.
Sales process is not, how do I get really good technique when I'm competing against 5 other people? It's to, how do I develop the relationship and understand how that owner, how that GC, or from a GC, how my subcontractors work so that well ahead, and I get to help develop the spec. I get to help develop the project the right way. A lot of people get in it. We have a lot of stats on this, Eric, but it's pretty common that there's a lot of people that are in construction that don't actually know how the thing is built. So there's a constructability problem that is created by the way that buyers buy, by the way GCs buy, by the way an owner is going to buy. So if we get in early and we work together before there's the project on the street for bid, then we actually have the ability to impact the success of the project. And so we have to start there, not at, I'm one of 5 bidders.
So the thing you're looking to do then is you're looking to influence the spec that actually hits the street, with the logic being that if I can do that, then I can increase the likelihood of my company being selected because I can put things in there that are favorable to me, but also beneficial to the client.
Exactly. Now, if you couple that with the last part of the conversation, which is if I'm a contractor and I pursue the work that I'm uniquely good at,
yes,
my team loves to do with helping to develop the spec, that's not just gamesmanship.
Yes.
I'll actually be able to defend the value that I bring to the table.
Yes. Now, as you're talking here, I'm thinking that some people are listening and they compete only in a hard bid environment. So let's say I'm thinking of one of my clients that's out of New York, and they are bidding local municipalities or federal contracts, and those don't getting in there to influence the spec. Is that possible? Do you teach your clients how to do that? Tell us a little bit about that, because sometimes I know people are like, Matt, easy for you to say, but I'm not doing negotiated work, right? I'm doing hard bid, low bid, all that kind of stuff. So tell us about that, please.
So government agencies work the same way. And that is there are buying clusters, right? There are people that are involved in making these decisions. And again, it comes down to, if you don't know who they are prior to an opportunity, once the opportunity for a government or municipalities on the street, they have rules they have to follow.
Yeah.
And so you're now stuck playing a game. So where you can win is when you can influence the process your buyer uses for buying. That is done upstream, meaning before the project is in a bid environment. Once it's in a bid environment, there are rules that especially a municipality has to follow.
Yes.
And now you just have to put your best number forward. And by the way, they typically don't take the low number. They throw that one out. So you're trying to play the game of, I don't want to be the highest, but I also don't want to be the lowest.
Right.
Now, here's the thing that most of your clients probably have experienced, even if they sell to municipalities. Someone has called them at 10 p.m., midnight, 1 in the morning, whatever, and said, hey, you're not going to win unless you can fix these 2 or 3 things.
Yeah.
That happened because there was a relationship established before the bid hit the street.
Yeah.
So there is evidence that exists. When you don't have those relationships and you're playing the hard bid game, You've just got to get really good on being accurate in your bidding. And
yeah, it is. It is. So you talked about hit rates of 35 to 50%. And maybe we got a few eye rolls or you got a few smiles, the eye rolls being from the folks who don't believe you, but the smiles being from the people who are like, yeah, you know what, man, I know I can get those kind of hit rates because I'm bidding the right projects to the right clients in the right locations, and I've influenced the spec. What are some other things that contractors can really be thinking about in order to get those kinds of hit rates?
Well, the first thing you need to do, and we refer to this as how do you navigate the pursuit? Okay. And by the way, they should have that reaction. We're looking to have people have that emotional reaction. If I've had knee pain for 20 years of my life and some doctor says, I can heal you tomorrow, you're going to say your brain won't let you even entertain that could be possible because it's just no way.
Yeah.
So welcome the skepticism. But to answer your question directly, we have to determine what information we have to have. What are the conditions under which we'll bid? Most contractors, we did a survey of about 300 contractors in the Mid-Atlantic in 2018, updated it in 2024. And what we found was, by and large, most contractors do not have a required criteria in order to quote. Is this the type of client that we do business with? Can we win? Do we have access to the decision makers? Right? When does the project need to be done? So we'll call that qualifying before you quote. But most contractors simply find an opportunity and bid it, take it to their estimating department. And the belief is, well, it's shots on goal.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's a lottery ticket mentality.
So that's interesting, right? Because the way I think about that is that your job as a contractor is to define the game that you play and then to invite people to play that game. And if they're not willing to play the game according to the rules that you've created, then you're like, that's fine. I'm doing enough business development activity. I'll just go find people who want to play the game instead of me as a contractor spending my whole life playing other people's games. What do you think about that perspective?
Yeah, I would call that the abundance versus scarcity mentality. When you have this scarcity mentality, you have to bid everything and just hope.
Yes.
But what it does is it leads to you ending up not making profit. And when you don't make profit, you go out of business, or you don't even want to grow. If you're the owner or the stakeholders within the company, you don't even want to grow because growing creates headaches.
Yes.
And it creates litigation, and it creates gamesmanship. It creates all these bad things that make you not want to grow your business. So to your point, if my belief is I can disqualify the opportunity because it's not a good fit, because there's better opportunity out there, it's counterintuitive, but you're more respected for declining the opportunity.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's something I learned very early on in my sales career is that being willing to walk away is more important than actually walking away. What do you think of that statement?
Well, I love that. In Sandler, there's this concept of selling after the no. Sometimes you have to say, look, I don't want to play the game we're playing, but I am interested under the following conditions of continuing the conversation. So You've got to be willing to walk away, because if you can't meet the conditions successfully for the two of you, or the two parties, then you're going to fail anyway. So, but what it does is it does change the dynamic of the discussion, right? If you're willing to walk away, then the buyer, if you will, understands they have to meet certain conditions to continue.
Yeah.
It's their choice.
It's interesting because what that does is, as I'm hearing you here, it creates this dynamic in the interaction. And I call it kings talk to kings, right? So I'm not going in there begging for work. Please pick me, Mr. GC. I'm begging for work. I'm not going in there arrogantly, but I'm going in there with a confidence and an assurance that's based on the fact that I can actually do the work. And I'm talking to the GC or to the owner as a peer. How does someone develop that type of confidence in a sales situation?
So first of all, Eric, I hope people pick up on that and take that, because kings talk to kings is a really valuable concept that I think people can get intellectually, but it's very hard to do out in the field. We have a similar term to relate that in the way that we talk about it, is equal business stature. You've got to have equal business stature with your client. So if you think to break that kings talk to kings, because I love that, it really means we have to have the right ego state when we're approaching an opportunity. So if you think about our egos, Dr. Eric Berg back in the 1950s came up with this concept of we operate from 3 ego states: a parent ego state, an adult ego state, and a child ego state. Now, most people in contracting are selling from a child ego state, meaning they're trying to please the parent. The parent is all powerful. The parent makes the decisions. The parent can be critical. The parent can put the kid in the corner and the timeout. The parent doesn't have to answer to the kid. And what happens, it's actually not the client's fault. The business developer puts themselves in the child ego state role, right? When do you need it by? How quickly can I get that to you? My price is too high. Well, where do I need to be? Right? These are all things that are putting you in non-equal business stature, king to a pawn, not king to a king. Equal business stature is where you bring the discussion to adult, which means that if I'm meeting with you, I can say, Eric, you're the owner of this multifamily property. I know you'd like to build another one just like it. We're a great GC, and certainly we've done work together in the past. My sense is at the beginning of this conversation, we've got to figure out if this is the right project for us. And if we can help you in terms of budget, constructability, timing of the project, and even help you write out and review the plans to make sure everything is right and it would be good for us. And if we can't do that, Eric, my sense is this may not be the right project.
Yeah, no, there you are. You're willing to take the deal off the table.
And you put that into your conversation, that's equal business stature.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody that's in child ego state, they hear that and they go, there's no way I could do that.
Yeah.
They catastrophize the situation as if I do that, I'm going to get thrown out.
Yes.
So
Yes.
therefore I must be a child.
Yes.
So we get a lot of heavy pushback on that, but kings talk to kings. The way you put that really captures the essence of that whole idea. If you believe that, you'll do the right things.
All right, quick break to talk about my book, Construction Genius. This is what I want you to do. Go to Amazon, search for the book, read all of the 5-star reviews, because there's a ton of them. Over 50 to be precise. And the reason I want you to read them is because real people wrote those reviews who've actually read the book. And it'll give you an idea of why you should go and buy a copy right now on Amazon. And here's the deal. If you purchase 10 or more copies for your company, and then send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, I'll come in via Zoom and do a 1-hour Q&A and a bonus training session with your team at no charge. I normally charge $4,500 for an hour of my time. And again, for you, I'll do it at no charge if you buy 10 or more copies of my book. And the reason you should buy it is all in the title. It's effective, hands-on, practical, simple, no BS, leadership, strategy, sales, and marketing advice for construction companies. So if you're in the construction industry, this book is for you. So you can get it on Amazon. You can also get it on Audible in the audio version as well, narrated by yours truly. And I know you'll really enjoy it. So go out and get the book. And now back to the interview. So let's talk about this. I love the framework here, parent, adult, child. So if I'm in that child-parent role dynamic and I'm in the child dynamic, how can I begin to shift my way out of it? I think, let me say this, how can I create a process that helps me to shift my way out of it, even if I don't feel like that adult to adult?
Well, the number one thing I would say is that, so I'm going to give you some planning and some technique here. Planning is you've got to pre-plan your conversations. Too many people are winging the conversation, which if you wing your conversations, here's how you know you're doing that. You're order taking. You're being told what to do and you're doing it. But in addition to that, you don't know what happens after you do what you do.
Yep.
So you have no idea. And now you're following up. And a lot of contractors are following up to see where the project is at. Hey, just checking in. By the way, just checking in is child to parent talk. Hey, just checking. I know I shouldn't be bothering you, but I am. I'm sorry. Even though I'm doing all this work, it's a really messed up dynamic. So the first thing we want to do is we want to pre-plan our conversations. Now, what should be in those conversations are, what is the information, if I'm going to be adult to adult, what is the information I need? What is the information they need? I should pre-plan that out. What are the questions they're probably going to ask me and how am I going to respond to those? What are the risks in this opportunity and how am I going to bring that up? And then lastly, what is the ideal outcome of the conversation? And one of those outcomes has to be, we're not going to proceed.
Yes.
I have to put that on the table. If ultimately I can't meet the criteria that make it good for everybody involved, adult to adult, I have to be willing as the business developer, if you will, or maybe I'm a project executive selling. I need to be able to say, I don't think this is the right project for us. And I have to tell the person on the other side of the table that up front before we get into the dialogue. So in Sandler term, they call that an upfront contract, but it's essentially putting no on the table up front.
Yeah. So let me explore that a little bit with you. So here's something that I've encouraged my clients to do. It's just the philosophy of quid pro quo, right? This for that. If I'm going to give you this, then you're going to give me something in return. So for instance, if you want me to give you a number, then you're going to be on the phone with me a day after that to give me feedback on the number. That's just an example of quid pro quo. What are your thoughts behind that? Is because again, someone might hear that and they're like, well, we just don't do it that way. And to me, that's like, okay, you can think like that, or you can choose to create the game that you play, like we talked about earlier, and change the dynamic between you and your prospective client.
So first of all, I love that you're coaching your clients to do that. That marries nicely to the contrarian contractor belief system. So for the contractor that wants to keep doing things the old way, that's okay. We're actually looking to find a space for the folks that are sick and tired of that and want to do things different, that are willing to try things differently. But back to that, we always suggest there's this concept, and Sandler didn't invent this, by the way, but BAMFAM, BAMFAM, book a meeting from a meeting. Anytime you have an expectation that there's going to be a step you two take together because you're going to put forth effort, there must be a meeting in the calendar to review and take that next step, and it must be defined. So if contractors that are listening to this have stuff in their pipeline that's been there for longer than it should, and there's no next date, what we're talking about right now is what they should be paying attention to, because they are wasting time checking and following up and making themselves look like a child to a parent. And by the way, all of our research and studies show that, this is an interesting stat. 53% of the GCs we talk to, the general contractors, have a sub that they don't bid out. The reason is more important. So hopefully people go, well, how do I get that? Well, the way you get that is you add value. You don't add value by quoting or being low. And any contractor who's been low, bent over backwards, done all the favors just to be invited to bid again against inferior competitors knows exactly what I'm talking about. You cannot win that game. But if you are educating your buyer, they got to be careful about this. I don't mean free education. And I mean, the questions you ask, you show up adult to adult.
Yes.
They're not going to want to bid you out. And adult to adult means at the end of a meeting, you say, okay, so at the beginning of this discussion, we talked about scheduling a time to follow up and reviewing this information together. What's your calendar look like? But a strong buyer wants that and is going to invite you back because you bring clarity to discussion. And contracting is a messy business.
Yes, it is.
It's a hard business.
Yeah.
A general contractor is 4 decisions away, or they're usually 4 companies away from their supply chain. They need people that bring order from chaos. So I know that's a little bit of a long answer, but if you've got a lot of stuff in your pipeline is in drift, then you're not doing the adult to adult. You're not doing setting clear expectations that are mutually agreed upon. And what you're telling people is you don't value your time.
Yeah, it's really great. So this idea of order from chaos, right? If you have a sales process that you follow, you have a process for building a project, right? You would never go on to a project without a plan, and obviously plans change and stuff like that, but you have systems and processes in place. You should definitely have a sales process in place so that you can create that order in the midst of chaos.
That actually is better, and by your buyer's definition, not yours, that the process is better than what they're currently doing.
That's excellent. So that means then obviously you have to do a little bit of investigation around what they are actually doing at the moment. Is that right?
You got to find out what they are doing in the moment. You have to do your research. And today with AI, it's easier to do research on your buyer and understand what are the likely challenges they're having.
Yes.
In their projects.
Yes.
And if you're not taking that 30 seconds, or you probably have millions of prompts in your back pocket and other guests that have shared some, and taking the time to understand the pain your buyer experiences in doing their job.
Yeah.
And that's where the conversation really needs to start.
Yeah. Let me read to you an email. Mm-hmm. And it's an email that I send out to people at times, and give me your feedback on it.
Okay.
When I haven't heard back from someone, I assume they're not interested in working with me. Is that the case? Thanks, Eric. Okay, so that's a template or a form of email that I send out often to people who I've discussed about my services. And there's a logic behind that. What do you think about the tone of that email as it relates to this idea of adult to adult as opposed to child to adult dynamic?
I think it's okay. You're looking to prompt that person. Now, you have different personality styles. They're going to receive messages differently. Typically, when I'm looking to re-engage, somebody has gone into drift that just they fell off the face of the earth for whatever reason.
Yep.
That's perfectly fine. It's not too harsh, but there are other derivatives you can add depending on knowing the personality. In other words, sometimes if somebody hasn't responded to me, that yet it's going to be a polite text. And the only thing that's going to be in that text is the word ping. Right? Ping. Right? I love text. I think your version, any of these will work. And we're probably like splitting tiny little hairs.
It's good. It's good.
But I also like the, are you okay? I'm concerned about you.
Yeah.
And so I'm hitting them on the personal, hey, human to human, there was an implied or discussed agreement on what was going to happen. And I haven't heard from you. We're now off track. So yours, are you okay? Ping. Are you still interested in fill in the blank, this project? The longer one, if I've done all that and it hasn't happened, the one that I really like is something along the lines of, hey, Eric, I've reached out a couple of times, email, text, phone calls, haven't heard from back from you. My sense is that priorities have shifted, something's changed, and you feel uncomfortable telling me. Please don't be. I'll assume the matter is closed for now. If I've misunderstood the situation, please reach out.
Nice.
Wishing you all the best.
Nice.
Now, the only intention in that last one is I'm closing the door on whatever the discussion was, but I'm maintaining the relationship, right? People say there's greatest fears like public speaking and all that. I think one of the things that it's hard for a human to do is to be very direct with another human being about where things stand, because you might be delivering some bad news.
Yes.
But the thing is, as a salesperson, here's the saying, if it's an NO, I want to KNOW.
Yeah.
So that I protect my time and I go focus on where I can actually develop opportunity. So I don't know if that's a little bit of a long answer to your.
It's good. So let me pursue it a little more with you. I was talking to a GC of mine, friend of mine, many years ago. They're bidding on an $80 million project and a lot of blood, sweat, and tears going into it. And I asked them, so who's the final decision maker? And they're like, I don't know.
Oh,
I know. Yeah, I knew that would get your attention there. So when I think of a construction sale, it's incredibly complex, obviously. And I'm sure you're familiar with the strategic selling framework where you have, the money buyer, the user buyer, the technical buyer, all those kinds of things.
Yeah.
What can I do? And again, a lot of people, they'll say, man, I just can't find out who the final decision maker is, or I can't get to them, or I can't talk to them. What are some strategies, some techniques, some even mindset shifts that I need as a contractor if I'm going to be able to increase the likelihood of me being able to speak with that final decision maker and influence them with regards to my offering?
So I'll give you a frame here to use for this. And typically what we think about, and going very, very generalistic here for a moment, and then I'll zero in,
please,
is for a project to be qualified, whether it's an $80 million 3-year buying process, or it's a $100,000 facade repair. It doesn't matter what it is. I always want to understand, is there pain? Is the budget there? And how the decision is going to be made? And to zero in on those 3 things, but the last one in particular.
Yeah.
Is I have to understand how the decision is going to be made to understand how to navigate the information I need to get. So the tool, this is a very simple tool that I like to give to contractors, is a decision timeline. So what I do is I ask the contractor not to focus on when they get the award, because when you get the award is a sales question. What I want a contractor to be seen as is a trusted advisor that is like an insurance policy you can't do without. No one's going to cancel their health insurance. No one likes paying for it, but they're not canceling it.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the mindset behind this question. By when does this project need to be completed?
Okay. Not when it's going to be awarded, but when it's going to be completed.
Correct. Because their process for making the award might be broken. I would be assuming that my buyer has a good process, and most of the time they don't. So a moment ago, I said, we got to make a process better than the one that they have. The way I do that is I start with this timeline. And usually what I advise my clients to do is get a big piece of paper on the table, a whiteboard, get in the same room if you can, and ask that question and then draw out a timeline. So on the far right, you would have the date by which the project is completed and everybody is saying, how do we work on the next project together?
Yes.
Because this went better than anything else we've ever done. So I'm constantly setting that bar. Now, what I do is I go at that point, once we know that date, let's say that that has to be done by August of 2027. This hotel has to be completed by project, 2027.
Yep.
So I say, okay, good. Walk me through what has to happen between today. And so on the far left-hand side, I put today's date and I say, walk me through your steps from here to there.
Okay. So you're saying that. And again, people are saying, well, dude, I could never do that. I mean, they're just going to say, you're just some sub, right? No, I'm not going to give you that information. Or they don't even feel, it goes back to that child parent thing again, right? They don't even feel worthy or something dumb, like not dumb, but
right.
Understandable like that to get into the room. So how can I get to that place where I'm actually willing to do that and I'm actually able to do that? Because there's a big jump there for a lot of people. You're creating this gap, Matt, that people have to get over.
Well, so one of the things they have to do, Eric, is they have to hire you, right? Because
you
or us. Look, we want to create a movement. There needs to be like 1,000 more us's out there helping.
No, believe me. Yeah, I know that.
But you need to have a coach, because what happens is you create a narrative in your head as a contractor that's never done that. And you say, well, I'm going to look stupid. I'll give you an example of this. We had a contractor who was pitching a private school on there. So it's a general contractor. And in the private school, the contractor calls me, he's a client, and they're north of $100 million in projects a year. And he calls me from the parking lot. He's in the parking lot. He's sitting outside the school. He's about to go in for his interview. He's one of 5 contractors going in for an interview. And here's what he said to me. He said, I just thought I'd call you. I've got only 5 minutes before I have to walk in and do my interview. And I was hoping you had some coaching for me, because this school has a board, this private school. And on the board is a contractor, and that contractor has been getting all their work. So give me some magic. And my first answer was, could you call me with a little more time before you're going into me so we can plan? I said, the best I can give you right now is this. I need you to ask a question. So I said, help me first. Where does that contractor fall short? Where have they had issues?
Yeah.
And so my client said, well, they've had some safety issues. And I said, good. I want you to walk into the meeting, and once the dust settles and you get through the pleasantries, I want you to ask them, hey, as we think about this project, everybody ranks things in different order. Where does safety rank for you? The head of the school talked for 45 minutes and gave them the pre-construction award, which was about $750,000.
Interesting.
For this new building they were building.
Yeah.
And what he said to me when I suggested he do this, he said, that's the dumbest thing ever, Matt. He said, safety is always important. I said, I'm not asking you, first name was Mike, but there's lots of Mikes out there. I said, I don't care what you think about safety. And that's not what I'm asking. I'm asking you to go in and to ask. He said, Matt, that's a dumb question. He said, I'll discredit myself by even asking. And he went into the meeting. He said, Matt, you popped up on my shoulder. I wasn't going to ask. I was convinced I wasn't going to ask it. Somehow it popped out. And they talked for 45 minutes and then gave us the award in the interview, which is never done. So to your point, contractors are going to fight, resist what they don't know. It's uncomfortable. It's scary. You could look bad. But the fact of the matter is, all you need to do is look at your hit rate, look how you get treated, and ask yourself, are you okay with that? Is that good for the next 10, 15, 20 years? Or do you want to change that? Are you tired of that?
Yep. Okay, so a couple of things there that I want to highlight here. People purchase for their reasons, not your reasons.
Love it. Yep, that's right.
And just because you think the reason is dumb or it's like table stakes doesn't mean like it's not a big deal to the person that you're selling to.
Correct. You're inserting your belief systems, how you buy into how you sell, which is usually wrong.
And that's why the quality of your questions are so vital, so that you can understand what their reasons are and then customize your presentation to meet those reasons.
Correct.
The other thing here, you use this phrase, which is never done. Okay. And what I heard there is that if your presentation, obviously backed by a reality, not just some soft shoe sort of dance, if you bring to the table enough value or solve the problems that your clients are looking to solve, they will change their process to be able to work with you.
100%. That's it. But you have to be a disruptor in the way you're thinking. Instead of what most people do is they are trying to demonstrate credibility. So they talk. And what real professionals do is they understand how to ask questions that are highly relevant to the pain their buyer is experiencing, how their buyer wants to be seen. People buy emotionally.
Yes.
Right? We know that. They justify intellectually.
Yep.
So when I went to the supermarket to get groceries for my family and I came home with a new car and no groceries, I had to justify that to my wife. Oh, honey, this is great. It's going to be good. It's better gas mileage. It'll be great for, it's a good business car. But that was an emotional purchase. Right. And the same goes true for a school that wants to be seen and understood as a safe place for children.
That's interesting.
Right. Now it's not about price anymore, but can you do that? Can you ask the questions that make it not about price? Price is used to organize chaos, right? So there's a saying in construction, which is there's never enough money to do it right the first time, but there's always enough to do it over.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a contractor, it's a general contractor mantra for saying we're going to go low price and fix it later. Right. So it all comes back to this, how are you thinking and approaching things, right? Are you asking questions that make it not about price?
So that's really good. I've never heard that. You said it so well. Price is used to organize chaos. That is very nice. I love that. And so what you have to do is you have to think through other ways to organize chaos other than price so that people can either avoid the pain that they're afraid of or gain the pleasure that they're seeking.
That's it. That's why we do anything. We got to get down to the human essence of this, human beings making decisions. It is about those underlying things that when we sell and we haven't done that, we kid ourselves into thinking we're good at selling, but the harder deals we're losing. If again, the goal, the holy grail is, can I get to a 50% hit rate?
Yeah.
But 30, and again, back to the eye roll, cue the eye roll, is I've got all these beliefs around selling and the way things work, so I don't really need to do that. I've won lots of business. That's not what I do. But the hit rate will tell no lies. So it's very, very important that we understand that we have to get to the emotion of the buying. And it doesn't matter if it's a big project, if it's a small project, if it's a municipality, if it's a commercial project, it doesn't matter. We have to be able to get to that. So there's a saying I like that helps from a belief system, which is my job is to help my buyer discover how I uniquely solve the problem.
How you uniquely solve the problem.
Right. And how I uniquely solve the problem is based on how they define the problem.
That's interesting.
So the way that I do that is I make sure that I understand my customer and the pain that matters to them. Now I got lucky but it's not telling. It's not showing your expertise. It's not showing your other projects you've done just like this.
Yeah.
It's not pictures of your project team. It's the questions you ask that are highly relevant to the pain they experience.
Yeah.
Or what really matters to them.
I think it's interesting as you're saying, you're saying this. I'm thinking about a sales situation I was in a couple of weeks ago where they began asking me a bunch of questions and I started talking too much and I could just feel it. Because I never do that. The one asking the questions, right? And I know how to sell stuff, right? And so,
right.
But then sometimes you get out of your game, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, you just feel like you're talking too much. And if you're talking too much, you are not selling in a strategic way that can help people to solve their problems because you're not spending enough time understanding the pain that they're in. You're just blabbing.
That's it. Well, and there's a phenomenon of where the more educated and smart you get and the more depth you have in your experience, the more you talk. And Sandler refers to that as the dummy curve. So the idea is true professionals dummy up even when they know the answer.
Yeah.
Right. Saying, buyers never argue with their own data. So the game in selling is to make sure that the buyer tells you what the fact and the truth is. Right. And then we summarize, validate the importance and conviction of solving that problem, paint a picture of what the solution looks like and ask them to validate that picture.
It's beautiful. Think about the last time you promoted someone into a leadership role and it failed. Why did it fail? I can tell you one reason. People know how to build projects, but they don't know how to build and lead teams of people. Construction comes with its challenges that only insiders truly understand. Generic leadership training doesn't cut it. You need a program to train your leaders built specifically for construction professionals led by an industry expert. And my online course, The Shift, is exactly that course. It has 5 modules. It'll teach your people how to control their calendars and reduce stress and embrace chaos and accomplish their critical tasks. It will teach them the 3 essential messages they have to communicate every day in order to motivate and lead their team effectively. It'll show them how to build and lead a high-performing team, give them a framework for running effective meetings so they'll be able to solve problems in less than an hour, and also give them a higher perspective on their leadership that will enable them to work on the business and on their teams and not get stuck in the weeds micromanaging. So go out to my website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, read all about the course, and then enroll yourself and your leaders in the course, and I guarantee that it will transform your leadership. If it does not, you take the whole course and you didn't get benefit from it, you just send me an email, eric@constructiongenius.com, and I will cheerfully refund you 100% of your money. I'm really confident this course will transform your leadership. So again, go out to the website, theshift.constructiongenius.com, learn more about the course, and start taking it today. I know we could go for hours here. One of the challenges that people have in construction sales is they get stuck behind their desk. And obviously in a world of technology where communication of some kind can be made tremendously easily, what in your view is the value of face-to-face contact, getting your face in the place and meeting your customers in person?
Highly valuable. So I'll use the example of getting an email or getting a handwritten letter in the mail, right? You can say the same thing in both forms. Which one is an individual going to value more?
Yeah.
So in person, the way communication works, and this is probably stuff that's mom and apple pie, but there are 3 things that really matter in communication. And that is the words you use, the tone in which you say them, and your physiology when you deliver that information. And those combination of 3 things used in different impacts. You cannot do that as well on a Zoom call or on a phone call or through email. So I get that it's more comfortable. I get that you don't have to make the drive, but if you want to do a lot of business and you're not an order taker, getting in front of people is going to be a priority.
Now you said your physiology. What do you mean by that?
It's your body language. It's how much energy do you, I know this is a little woo-woo for some people in construction, but it's how good is your energy? Do you look like you just rolled out of bed after a bender, or do you look like you've got your game on and seem engaged, or are you looking at your phone? Do you seem distracted, or or am I giving you my full attention? These are things that mean a lot to people on a subconscious level, which is where we buy from, right? Ultimately, when it comes to sales, the first thing a salesperson, when somebody knows you're selling them, the part of the brain that's deciding how to respond is not the part that understands words. It's the fight or flight part of the brain, the basal ganglia. I mean, it's there's enough science behind this. I don't need to recite the science, but contractors are very much about how they feel about somebody.
Yep.
And very emotional people.
Yes, they are. That's true. That's true. Let me give you 5 core traits of a salesperson. Tell me which ones you think are most important. Tell me which ones aren't important. So I want to get your feedback. So first one is empathy, then the desire to win, the ability to welcome rejection, being optimistic, and then balancing relationships, results, and ego.
Oh boy, man. Eric, I don't know if I can pick. I think those are all important. I'm going through them in my head. There's nothing that I would say I would downplay there. I think these are things that you have to train on constantly. So I think one of the things that is probably misunderstood the most is empathy. And that's really the EQ, emotional intelligence. Do I understand what's not being said? Am I putting myself in your shoes and asking myself, how does that feel? How does that impact you? How does that impact the decisions? Does that mean you go home at night in a bad mood? Do you spend your weekends working? And I think that's the part that's missing, and people can feel that. And if you're not emotionally intelligent, you don't know why you're not winning. You don't know why people don't want to meet with you. And it's because you're not reading your customer. You're not asking yourself on a level of feelings where they are. And boy, contractors really, when you get that right, they appreciate that. I think all humans do, but
Yeah, it's interesting when you say empathy as well. It's like, I think a lot of contractors think, well, I don't feel empathetic. And because, they're looking for some sort of like, I don't know, maternal instinct towards someone or something like that. But that's really not what empathy is about. It's more about asking more questions than talking, being aware of the other person's facial expression, gestures, body language, like you said. I think one of the things is if you're actually more interested in other people than you are in yourself,
yes,
then that just opens a massive gate to being able to influence them.
I think it's that. There's, and I think I would add to that, Eric, there's a study that was done a while ago on salespeople and their ability to shut up. And I'm a salesperson, okay? So I'm talking about myself. When asked, salespeople would say to the question, how long are you comfortable with silence in a sales environment, sales conversation? The average answer came to 5 seconds. They then put those same salespeople into role plays and timed them. Any guess as to how much time salespeople are actually comfortable with just not talking?
Maybe 1 second, maybe 2.
0.67 seconds.
Wow.
Okay. So just being quiet and giving people the space to talk a little bit more, not having all the answers, is one thing that I think is key in that process. But the other is taking the time to think about, again, and prepare, what are the questions you want to ask? To not being focused on yourself, but being focused on them means you're asking insightful questions. What are the things that have caused projects to go wrong in the past? How has that impacted you personally? What would be the things that I should absolutely avoid or communicate to you? And help me understand why that's important. Watch what they say to you. I mean, all of a sudden they're going to relive past experiences. And if you shut up and listen, they will anoint you with the knowledge that you listen, you understand, and you're going to help them avoid those things in the future.
Yeah. The quality of your questions will help you to be quiet.
Yes.
Because they will elicit an answer from the people that is informative and rich and gives you an opportunity just to listen.
Right. And just a word of caution on that. A lot of times when we train people and we give them the questions, they've got 5 questions, right? Let's just say it's 5. Yeah. And they ask a question like, good, I asked that one. And then while their GC or the owner is talking, they're thinking about the next question they're going to ask. They're not listening. So active listening, parroting, paraphrasing, nodding your head, saying, just things like that to say, I'm listening to you. I'm not just waiting to ask my next question is really important. You've actually got to get the deeper answers, not just have the questions.
Yeah. Then what you'll find as you're asking the question, let's say you have those 5 questions, you ask your first question, their response then, it promotes or it provokes a natural question in your mind to their response. And
right,
without failing to get to your core questions, you should ask that natural question, the one that pops into your head, particularly if it relates to the way they make decisions, who's making decisions, why they're making those decisions.
Yep.
Okay.
And a lot of times those are really short follow-on questions like, tell me more. Can you give me an example? Right?
Give me an example. That's good. I like that one. Yeah, that's great. Okay, Matt, this is awesome. We're about an hour in here, so we're going to begin to wrap up here. Tell us a little bit more about the work that you do, how people can get in contact with you, the best way to get in contact with you.
Well, so the work that we do is on the business development side for contractors. That's working with the leadership teams on putting a management operating framework in place that drive the types of sales process that allow contractors to hit that 35 to 50% hit rate. But what we do is we have to work with the stakeholders first. Stakeholders have to make a decision in their business that they no longer want to play the low bid game. And if that philosophy isn't bought into at the top, it will not work. So Eric, the clients that we work with, that we've worked with for 20 years, it's because we started with the owner, who at the time was the salesperson and now is, no longer in the day-to-day sales role, but they understand how sales works and they believe it's a system. So those are the folks that we work with. How people can get in touch with us is by going to neuberger.sandler.com, Matthew Neuberger, Sandler online. you'll find us, or go to my LinkedIn, Matthew Neuberger, and you can get in touch with me there. If people want, an example of the field guide that we put out for contractors, we give that free to the universe, only because we've seen the impact it has.
Yes.
And not all contractors can afford to work with us. And so we still want them to have tools and resources they can use in their own meetings on their own.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, do you have a book that's coming out as well, or a book that's published?
Yeah. So the field guide is The Contrarian Contractor, How to Win Work Without Being Low. And that field guide is set up so that we give you stories of real contractors. But the first few chapters are around changing your mindset. And at the point where you get through the third chapter, if you don't believe in the mindset that we're talking about, you don't have to read any further. The rest of the book is section by section. How do you plan out your market? How do you build your process? And so it's meant to be very practical and usable, where each chapter is going to ask you, it's going to introduce some examples, and it's going to give you a questionnaire. Based on how you answer, will reveal whether you need to use the tools in that section or not. So you don't have to read it. It's not a cover to cover guide. It's go to the section where you think you need to work, answer the questions, and use the tools. And all the tools are provided in the book.
Beautiful. Okay. So we'll have links in the show notes to all of that information. And what you were just saying there, it really brings me back to the beginning of our conversation, where that big change that you can make is to think about the work that you love to do and that your people love to do, where you make money, and then to think through, how do those people that I build for find me, and then really focus in on that niche.
Right. What we see is the level of energy almost immediately increases when companies get that right. Everybody in the company is energized by that direction rather than taking everything.
You see, that's beautiful right there. You don't do that consciously, but you just feel it when it's working. You have that energy. And then if you're disciplined in terms of your activity so that your pipeline is full, when anything ever comes across your way, which you're like, I don't want to do that, then you just say no to it, because you have plenty of the other stuff that you can say yes to.
Yeah. And Eric, a note on that, most of our contractors say, well, we have this client we've done a lot of work with, and we love them, and we do great projects, but they brought us this project that really isn't a fit, but we're going to do it anyway as a favor because we don't want to lose the relationship. And what I would say is, no, you say no to that. Your client will love you more for saying, that's not a project we're going to do a good job at, and I don't want to lose our relationship. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Right?
That's right.
I don't want to lose the relationship over doing you a disservice. You will not lose your client. You will gain their respect and their loyalty.
Lovely. Great way to end. Matt, this has been awesome. Really enjoyed it. Appreciate you coming on the show here today.
Thank you for having me as a guest. Appreciate it, Eric.
Awesome. Thank you for listening to my interview today with Matt. I know there's so much value in here. You got to share it with other people. You got to give us a rating and a review wherever you get your podcasts. And you should probably re-listen to this episode. No, I'm going to take away the probably. We're going to go with definitely. Definitely re-listen to this episode. It's going to tremendously benefit the way you do business development. And again, get in touch with Matt if you need help with your business development. And I'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening to this episode of Construction Genius. Hope you found that 1% of inspiration to help you in the next few days. If you like the show, please give us a 5-star review on iTunes, share it with other construction leaders who you think would benefit, and always remember that the show is brought to you by Kick-Ass Meetings. I've been working with construction leaders since 2004, teaching them how to run extremely effective problem-solving meetings that gets their people collaborating, taps into their creativity, and to get yourself a free copy of the Kick-Ass Meeting Report, go to www.ericanderton.com/kickassmeetings. Grab yourself that free report, read it, use it in your business. You'll find it extremely useful. And thanks again for listening.